Hey guys, welcome to Frame Rate, podcast where we chat about games that we're playing and forcibly recommend other games for each other to play. I'm Robert.
And I'm Cameron.
And today, what are we talking about, Cameron?
Today we're going to be talking about Senua's Sacrifice, the game that you recommended to me in the last episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I sent you the screenshot the night after I beat it, it was like the minute that I beat it, because I made sure to get all the achievements and everything because I love achievements. But yeah, I enjoyed the game a lot, and I think it was a very, very good recommendation. So thank you very much for recommending this one to me.
Yeah, I did. I don't know if I told you this, but I actually looked up my achievements on this because, like when we were talking about Outer Wilds, I was like, I love Outer Wilds, one of my favorite games of all time. Oh yeah, I also have like 25% of the achievements. I looked up my achievements for Hellblade, and I'm actually only missing one.
Oh, it's probably the one for getting all the lore markers then, huh?
Probably.
Yeah, I think that might be the only missable achievement in the game.
Damn it.
Yep, you gotta interact with all the runes. I did like how they showed you your progress though towards it, with a radial circle when you interact with the runes. You could see how many you were missing because they would still be red in the circle, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I can just get started talking about my experience with the game. I enjoyed it a lot. I did have a couple critiques. I actually wrote down a shit ton of notes in a notepad while I was playing through the game. And unfortunately, I do feel like a lot of the notes kind of skew negative because I wrote down notes whenever I encountered an issue. But I did also write down some stuff when they blew my mind. And I kind of want to start with the positive before I go into the nitty gritty.
Totally.
So for people who haven't played Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, the premise is it's like a third-person action game. There's a lot of puzzles. I would say it's maybe even more puzzly than action. And one of the main gimmicks of the game is that the character is kind of going a little crazy, going through it, and she hears voices. And they recommend that you play the game with headphones on because the voices come at you from all angles, left and right, and they really they tickle your ears, man. I wrote a note here in my notepad that said, audio is already tripping me out and I'm 5 seconds in. I want the voices to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the sound design a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, we're kind of on the topic here. The voices were the most stressful and yet the most helpful part of this game.
Yes.
There's one instance that I remember vividly that maybe you caught on to where they made me doubt myself.
Yeah.
And
are you talking about the torch part?
Yeah.
Yeah, that part freaked me out.
When everything was on fire?
No. Shoot.
Okay,
there's another instance later in the game. So yeah, we're going to be spoiling everything. But there's another instance.
I don't think we're doing a no spoiler talk period here.
Yeah. How long has the game been out then? Anyway, it's been a couple years, right?
It's been several years.
Did it come out in 2018 maybe? Maybe even 17? The graphics are really freaking good for coming out around that time. I remember when it came out, it was one of those games that was kind of on the cutting edge of facial animations.
Yeah, August 2017.
Woo! Hot diggity damn. But yeah, for the voices, I do think that that's probably the strongest gimmick in the game. I don't think I've ever seen or heard another game do something like that, and I think it was really smart. There's one part towards the end of the game where you have to run from light areas to other light areas, and if you stay in the darkness for too long, you'll die, or they freak you out by every time you step out of the light and into the darkness, your screen starts rumbling and it starts getting redder and redder, so you're sprinting from light to light, and then you get a torch. So then you're cool, I have my own mobile source of light now. I can walk through this cave and I have the torch. And they fuck with you multiple times on that. There are times where the torch goes out and you have to light it again really quickly. But there was one instance where I'm just walking, minding my own business. I'm walking down a staircase with my torch, and then one of the voices in my head goes, "It's going out. You have to get more light. It's going out. The torch is going out." And I was like, "No, because that part scared the shit out of me. Because oh my gosh, for a brief moment I doubted. I was like, "Oh shit, does the torch have a timer? Do I need to go light it again real quick?" And for 3 seconds, it scared the shit out of me. And I was like, oh my God, no game has ever done that to me, where they cast doubt on my abilities through audio. I thought that was really freaking cool.
Totally. I mean, I think that the way they I loved that they teach you the game mechanics, and then you have the voices in there that almost make you forget that you're playing a game, and you don't think about it from like a game mechanic standpoint. You just think about like this world has its own set of logic, and suddenly you're like, am I doing the right thing, am I not doing the right thing, not what did the game designers want me to do, because the
Mm-hmm.
voices instill you with so much paranoia and fear, and even trust a lot of the times, where like, you'll be fighting and the voices will be like behind you, and then you like dodge, and then
Yeah.
so then you learn to trust these voices, and you're like, these voices are the like source of truth. Um and then, like the instance that I was thinking about was when every like the whole town is on fire,
Mm-hmm.
and like one of the things I was like, oh, I need to turn around and run through this gate, and they're like, oh, she's not going to make it, she can't make it, she needs to turn back around, and ignoring those voices and pushing through, I'm doubting myself. I'm like, shit, am I going to
Yeah.
die here? And then I push through, and then sure enough, like, oh my god, I can't believe, like, the voices are surprised.
Yeah, they would help you and lie to you at the same time, and I guess that's what made it
Hmm.
effective because sometimes they would help you in combat. I remember there was like a boss fight, and the voices were like, "Oh, they're too strong. You need to dodge. You need to dodge. You need to dodge." Or like, there's that one boss, Cert, who like lights himself on fire at one point, and they're
Hmm.
like, "He's on fire. Stay away. Stay away." And
Yeah.
then, oh man, yeah, I think that was one of the coolest things in the game, all the voice stuff. I can't believe like no other games have done that before, but I guess maybe that's like the cool like gimmick for Hellblade.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is like, she has, like you said, she has psychosis.
Hmm.
So she hears voices and she sees things that aren't necessarily there. And that's a very specific, um, like, condition to try to mimic that. Like, that effect is difficult to mimic without having that condition.
Hmm.
It could definitely be done and worked into another like story's narrative or whatever, so you have that element, but totally, like, it's a very unique experience.
Yeah, it was really friggin' cool, and it makes me wonder what the heck they're gonna do for the next one, because there is Hellblade 2 coming, and I totally was gaslighting you in the last one by saying it was a big baby. In
I
the Hellblade 2
mean,
trailer. When I was
it's
playing
just a
through
large bald man.
so it looked like it may have even been Hella.
Oh
So
yeah.
they portrayed Hella as like really fucking big, but also like naked and like covered with like white body, but covered with like black like runes all over, almost looking
Hmm.
like a comic book. And yeah, when I was playing through the game, I was like, oh shit, I think maybe I lied. I think that was Hella actually.
Well, then we went back and watched the trailer later, and I was like, oh yeah, that wasn't a baby. But then I didn't really like. I didn't think about it being Hella. And now that you're saying that, I remember Hella's design, and it could be, or
Maybe I'm
maybe
just
it's
gaslighting
another.
again.
Maybe it's just another god, or just a vision.
Another god of war. That is one thing
Oh,
that I do want to discuss also.
sure.
There were a lot of similarities I found, and a lot of it ties to them both being like, Norse mythology now. But like I did notice that both games start with like a very long boat ride or like a canoe, like paddling through the water.
Hmm.
And both games also feature the main character having like a head dangling from their waist. Although I guess God of War he gets the head later, and it's Mimir. I think
Oh yeah.
yeah, one thing I really enjoyed was listening to their interpretation of Norse mythology and kind of framing it in the God of War context as well. Because, of course, God of War takes some liberties. And
Yeah.
I found it in particular very interesting in the final chapter. All the lore markers in the very last chapter of Hellblade reference Ragnarok. They talk about, like, the ending of the gods, which is a very important moment in Norse mythology. They reference it at the end of God of War as well, because they said that there's a long winter before Ragnarok, and then after that, all the gods start fighting each other and start killing each other, and they split the sky and all this crazy shit. And I was like, oh, cool, that's just gonna happen in the new God of War. Like they're giving me like lore ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up, because I actually played God of War like not long before I played this game.
Hmm.
So then it's like, oh, there's this like crazy streak of like Norse mythology in my like in my realm of like what I'm doing, what am I playing. I think at
Yeah,
that point, God of War, I'd probably played it like 6 months ago, but it's still pretty recent memory.
yeah, yeah.
So it is fun to kind of like compare the two, and of course, God of War doesn't really introduce us to Hela or Surtur, but um,
Yeah, they
you
have like.
definitely
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just gonna
you
say.
definitely get hints at them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I bet you they'll show them in like the next game probably. It seems like they were like kind of like doing like more loose stuff in the first one and kind of like doing like the intro like I don't know interpretations. I really
Yeah.
liked Mimir though. Like I thought he was one of my favorite characters in God of War.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And what's just so cool, I thought, was to see the like how I guess really you're really only spending time in Helheim in this, huh? For the most part. Or
Yeah,
Hell.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, Helheim,
Yeah.
the Heim of the
Helheim.
Hells.
Yeah.
We
Are they the same, Hell and Helheim? I feel like I've heard them described as both
um
Norse mythology.
I mean, yeah, they're really the same.
Yeah.
Helheim is, I think, the more like formal name, and I don't know if people like refer to it just as like Hell straight up. I think there's a god named Hel, and then Hela.
Oh,
Um,
maybe.
but yeah, we would when we were testing God of War, we jokingly referred to it as Heckheim, and then we also referred to our testing bay as Memeheim because Heim is home. So it was like
Oh,
the home of the memes. This is where the
home
memes
of the
all live.
memes. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Yeah. Go ahead. I
Okay.
know that like part of how I introduced this, and I'm sure you touch on this actually. I said go ahead, and then I'm like, no. Uh,
No, it's all good.
is this is a very like narrative heavy, like that's its highlights. And I was
Hmm.
like, like I told you before you came in, I'm like the combat is serviceable. It's good enough to get you through the game without being like boring or whatever.
Yeah. I found the
So
combat to be like kind of like an annoying rock paper scissors a lot of the time, but eventually I found like the best strategy, which was like spamming heavy attacks. And if you use left bumper in combat, left bumper is your sprint button or like your run button. And
mhm.
if you press the run button in combat, she'll start running towards the target that you're locked onto. And like
Yeah.
her running heavy was really, really strong. And if you landed any hit on an enemy and staggered them and then did the running heavy, you could basically land it for free every time. And if you did
Oh.
running heavy into running light, I know this is gonna sound like nerdy, like combat shit, but she would do like an impaling stab on the enemy, and it would basically like one shot most things. Originally, I will admit I had my difficulty on auto, and then after a while, I noticed that like the difficulty was really just like making the enemies more damage spongy.
hmm
And then I cranked it down a little because I was like, man, I just want to kill through these things and like get to the next puzzle or get to the next like combat or sorry, get to the next like cinematic. I wasn't as
Yeah.
I wasn't as into the combat. I did write a note though towards the start. I said combat is easy, just time blocks, bro. Um, so you can block, and if you time it just right, you'll do a perfect parry. It got harder though once they introduced like multiple enemies in combat, but it was kind of awkward like locking onto an enemy and then switching your lock on because like it was like third person sword play and the camera was like very close to Senua's back and it was very hard sometimes to like survey the whole battlefield. But I guess that's maybe claustrophobia was like what they're going for there. I don't know. It makes sense if she's like
Yeah.
feeling
It's this
suffocated.
trade-off of do we go for this tight feel that also makes the gameplay a little less like it makes the gameplay a little more frustrating, but at the same time it's like is that frustration supposed to be like spilling over from the character to the player?
Yeah.
Or was it just bad design?
It makes you wonder. Yeah, I would love to make a game that's just like horribly designed, but excuse every single thing as saying like, oh, it's part of the story. Like, oh, that's the lore.
Yeah.
Actually, the character actually lives in a world of bad video games. And
So for them, this is a good video game.
yeah, this game was very good. I do feel like I enjoyed some of the puzzles more than the combat. I wrote down only a couple combat specific notes. One of them that I wrote down for combat is I hate forced deaths, but eh. At the very start of the game, they kind of force you to die in the tutorial of combat, which I didn't like as
hmm
much. You're kind of getting the hang of things and you're like killing like dudes one at a time, and then they introduce like a shadowy dude that you just can't hit, and it's like, okay, cool, I guess I gotta die here.
Yeah.
And speaking
But
of, oh yeah, what up?
I did want to counter with that's how they introduced the permadeath stakes.
Yeah. I did enjoy that, although I've heard mixed reports on that, on if they actually
Oh
do
shit!
that.
You can't actually permadeath.
But I was afraid of it the whole time. I did my best to avoid dying just because they lied to me at the start. Oh man.
Right.
Oh
Again,
gosh.
the game tells you something, and you're like, I don't know if I believe this or not.
Yeah. So I guess for context, for people who didn't play the game, I think you should. At the very start of the game, Senua has like a darkness that's like creeping up her right arm, and they tell you, hey, every time you die, the darkness will advance further and further up her arm, and if you die too many times, eventually it'll consume her and you'll lose your save file. And I think it was just all a big lie.
I mean, it absolutely was.
But that's so cool though, because then you're just afraid the whole time. Knowing that it's a possibility freaks you out, and I guess that kind of falls in line with the rest of the themes of the game, which is like, am I lying to you? Is this truth or not? And lying
Yeah,
to the player is very good. I like being lied to me. Lie to me, baby.
yeah. Like get in my head is like what I really enjoyed about that, because it's just like I don't know, like there's mind games going on between like the developer and you,
Yeah.
and I think that's so cool.
It's like they know
And
what'll make you uncomfortable, and then they just go with it.
yeah, did you notice that the darkness keeps traveling up her arm throughout the story anyway?
Yeah, I did notice that, and it made me wonder. So I did my best the entire time to avoid dying. I think, truthfully, I died twice. I never died in
Okay.
combat. There was one time where I died, and it was because there was like, it was one of those like trials, and it was the one where it starts off in a swamp, and then you go into a building, and then it's like there's an angry mob chasing you, and you have to run from the
Mhm.
mob. I fucking hated that. That was like, I was so afraid of that. I hate that shit. And
The
then
swamp
yeah, there was like a Shrek swamp at one part, and you have to like
has a
go.
mob. I don't remember the mob.
Yeah, you go into a house, and then it triggers like a cutscene, and then you hear like a bunch of like voices that are angry voices like following you, and you have to like run through this like maze of like wooden planks. It was really friggin' scary, man.
Oh, yes, yes. I died on this one too.
Yeah, that was
You have
hard.
to go find the runes running around and shit.
Yeah, it was like friggin' Pac-Man.
Yeah.
That was
And
hard.
then you hear the voices. The voices are even talking to you. Speaking of the voices,
Yeah.
they're the ones
Oh,
telling you, hey, this is safe. This is not safe. Hurry up. You're running out of time. Adding more pressure to everything that you do.
yeah. They're like, go, 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 run, run. You got to escape. They're gonna get you. I'm like, oh, they are gonna get me. Fuck.
The second time I did this part, because I did die on it once, the second time I did it, I was definitely like running in circles, just trying to make myself some space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just running away and like, yeah, trying to kite the voices almost, or kite
Yeah.
the angry mob.
And then like going back to the sound, the way they incorporated these chains, that like if you hit the
Mm.
chains, it triggers the enemy. Like,
Oh
oh, that
gosh.
was such a good
Yeah.
touch, I thought.
Oh man. Yeah, I did my best to avoid those when I saw them, because yeah, there was that one trial, which holy fuck, like I'm so bad when it comes to horror, and this game definitely like had a good amount of horror moments. And
Yeah.
there was the one trial where it was like you're in the darkness, and you can vaguely make out an outline of something that looks not human. It's kind of like a Resident Evil looking monster, where it's like kind of all blobby and has multiple arms coming out of this like blob torso, and it
Yeah.
moves around like awkwardly. And I was like, oh god, I'm staying far away from these guys. I hated that. It was so scary.
That was the worst part of the game, and I don't mean like critically. I just mean like emotionally. That was rough.
Yeah, and then like you have to like walk through. Towards the end, I got like desensitized to it, but at the start it was really hard. I saw the first one and I was like, man, I gotta walk by that thing. Fuck. But towards the end, there was like a labyrinth, and there's like multiple like hanging bodies, and you're walking through deep water. And I was just holding forward, and I was like, come on, get me out of here. Just get me out of here, please.
Just
Oh
like the
man.
stress overriding your fear. You're
Yeah.
just like, I just need to move past this.
Yep. I was like, I gotta move. I gotta move. Oh man. I will
Yeah,
say.
I was worried, just talking on the horror a little bit more,
Mhm.
that you were gonna hate it because of that. Because I know that this game, like, I know what stresses you out, and I was worried that this might be a little like
Oh, like a
too
roadblock.
far. Yeah, or just like a not even like a roadblock. Like that was definitely what I thought. But I was also thinking, what if it's more like the stress outweighed the parts that you'd liked? So I'm glad that it kind of
Hmm.
like almost struck that balance. It sounds like.
Yeah, I think in the moment I was like, fuck this. I paused and I was like, oh man, here we go. But I think I forced myself through it because like I'm like, oh, okay, it's not. It's I mean, it's just a video game. How spooky could it be? Also, and then like I kind of wasn't afraid of dying, even though I still at the time believed that death would cause me to lose my save file. But I also at the same time was like, I gotta go. Like I need to do this. And I think like one thing that is nice also is like knowing that there's the recommendation from the frame rate podcast. I'm like, well, I've got to beat it. I've gotta beat it. I'm beating this fucking game. Oh man. I do have a couple more notes if we want to talk through some
Yeah,
of
let's
them.
go.
So let me know what you think about this. This one might be a little bit harsh, but at the end. Oh wait, sorry. What, I'm like bouncing back and forth between notes. I just read this note right here. I said, "Fuck all the horror shit, man. The blob people." So that's like the little like bookend for the horror section.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Um, so I wrote this note. Let me know if you agree or not. Endless battle at the end sucked ass.
Yeah.
I at the very end of the game, once again spoilers, but I mean if you're at this part, then yeah. The freaking final boss per se, in air quotes, is you confront Hela, and an endless wave of enemies spawn around Hela. And I must have killed enemies for 10 minutes straight before I was like, oh, fuck this. I'm just going to die here. And then dying there is what triggered the end of the game.
So did you expect that, or did you just think that maybe you'd done something wrong and you were going to reload a
I
checkpoint?
thought maybe I would kill enough enemies to get through. Sorry, there's going to be a little background noise. But yeah,
Oh,
I thought
good.
I was going to kill enough enemies to get through, and then at that point I would win. Like I thought like, "Oh, I'm just going to keep on cutting through enemies until I eventually trigger the win." But no, I had to die.
So like I wonder what your thought process was when you were like, I'm time to die. Like, did you think that dying was the way forward, or were you
So
just frustrated?
I got downed once before. So I was killing enemies for like 10 minutes straight. And then during one of those like encounters, I got downed. And then there was like a voice line about like this is the end, like succumb to the end or something, like just die here. And I was like, no, fuck that. I'm gonna do what I've learned through the rest of the game, which is disregard the voices. I was kind of led to
Hmm.
believe that the voices were kind of like the inner darkness or inner weakness, and she finds strength through disregarding them. And I was like, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to disregard these voices that are telling me to give up and quit, and I'm going to keep on fighting. And then I kept on fighting, and then nothing happened. So then eventually I did die. And I guess in a sense, maybe they were telling the truth all along. But in that moment, I was like, fuck these voices. Fuck all this. I'm going to keep on fighting. I'm going to win. And then, yeah, the way to win was to die.
Yeah, yeah. I'm asking because I was downed once as well, and I was like, oh no, I'm not going to give in to the voices or hella or the disease or the whatever, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna fight through it. And then at some point, as I was grinding on, I was like, is this how the game ends? Like I was almost thinking through the thematics of the game and the voices as
Hmm.
I was fighting, and I was like, well, kind of narratively, the whole point is for her to let go.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, maybe this is the point where I just say, like I can keep fighting these demons and I can keep trying to hold on to trying to avenge Senua's lover, but ultimately I can just give up and move on. And and like, you know, that's totally in line with the narrative. And I think that as frustrating as that was as a player, I would have rather them start to introduce more like shadow people to automatically kill you instead of you doing it endlessly.
Yeah. They could have very easily, I don't know, resolved the issue by introducing, like, I don't know, invincible enemies. Or, I mean, that would still be frustrating, but, narratively have some sort of way where, like, once you do enough, every enemy downs you in one hit or something. Like, I don't know, like, you could still theoretically not get hit, and I did my best to avoid getting hit there.
Yeah.
But I would love for there to be some sort of other way that they broach it. I mean, I guess they tried to do that by introducing a lot of strong enemies there at the end, but I was kind of schmooving on them. Plus, I told you earlier that I
Right.
cranked my difficulty down a little, so I was like one-shotting things. If you entered focus mode, and then and it's hard to explain necessarily for people who haven't played the game, but there were bosses, and then towards the end of the game, they introduce enemies that have the moveset of that boss, but look a little different. And they would spawn these kind of like boss enemies at the very end. So there was like a Cert boss enemy, and then like the other one was like Val Raven. They
Hmm.
would introduce enemies that had their moveset but didn't look necessarily like them. But that was their way of kind of like making common enemies towards the end of the game harder. And there was like a big heavy dude that was like Cert. I think it's Cert, and friggin'
Yeah.
if you enter focus mode and then just did like a one heavy attack into a sprinting heavy attack and then like another heavy or something, you just kill him. And it was like this big badass dude would die in like 1 second, and I would just be spamming that shit. It was good.
Yeah. I think there was like I think this game almost puts the art before the gameplay.
Yeah.
Which I totally respect. And I think as frustrating as that last bit was, talking through it now, I actually feel like giving the player the agency to keep fighting and keep holding on versus like giving up and letting go was the right way to do it. As we're talking through this more, I'm like, because I'm thinking if you make the enemies harder or stronger, or you make them the shadow people from the beginning that you can't hit anyway, or whatever, then you're taking that agency away from the player, and then you're taking away the from Senua's decision to let go from the narrative.
Yeah, I guess
And
there's like a balance to strike there, and I feel like maybe the
yeah,
problem was exacerbated by me lowering the difficulty so that way I didn't die. But the concept of like fighting an endless wave for 15 minutes and like advancing nothing, I find that to be like a frustrating possibility.
yes,
And I would like to maybe like I would love for them to have like reduced that so I didn't like fight for so long. I don't know, but yeah, having it be like more agency, I guess, is good. But I don't know, like at the same time, I could make the decision to not fight and give up, but at the same time, I could also make the decision to continue fighting, which would be fruitless. And I don't use the word fruitless like ever, so I don't know where that came from. But yeah,
yeah.
it was
I
interesting.
mean, the game clearly like doesn't stop. At some point, you start getting the same mob spawns, and like they keep coming
Yeah,
back, and
that's
there's
what kind of clued me into it.
yeah.
Are they just gonna keep spawning like dumb bullshit forever? Like, what the hell is going on? This sucks. So like at that point, I was like, oh, this is like a really bad ending now. Like, I feel like they didn't necessarily like stick that landing because like it left a sour taste in my mouth at least, just because I made the decision to fight.
See, I think I fought for about 10 minutes, and then once I decided to give up, and then I got the narrative to like loop everything in, I felt like everything came together nicely. Of
Mm-hmm.
like going back to that whole like you can keep fighting, or you can just let go and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like I think in the moment I was frustrated, but I think the narrative outweighed that aspect for me personally.
Yeah, and I think that kind of shows our difference in priorities as well. I know that like that could be like a running meme for us, where like I'm
Yeah.
kind of more like I'm like fuck narrative. I only care about gameplay. And in that
Yeah.
moment, I was like, this gameplay sucks. And then like towards the end, like I don't know, like I did find some of the cutscenes to be compelling, but at the same time, I also saw them as like something to like kind of get through to move to the next stretch of gameplay. And
Mhm.
yeah, I wanted to get your opinion on something too. I wrote this down early in my playthrough. I wrote down Druth is totally live action, Lamau. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of people in the game were live action, huh?
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
Like even towards the end of the game, like as she's spoilers again, as she's dying, she's looking into the ground, and then Dillian is looking up at her, and he's just kind of like naked, laying there looking up at her, and it was just like a live action naked dude, and I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, the mixed media there was a little jarring. And again, maybe that's everything that they're going for. I don't know, but
Mm-hmm.
that one didn't really like. I forgot about that until you just said that right now. But I very remember vividly being like, that guy's live action. But and then Control does that too. Actually, they have live action
Oh.
bits inside of the game. So
Yeah, it
once I
reminds me
saw,
of like
yeah.
cheesy FMVs almost. Like there's the old like Command and
Hmm.
Conquer game where like people would just randomly show up as like live action videos and then you would go back to like game. But I guess
Yeah.
they did it well in Senua's Sacrifice, but at the same time like I mentally associate it with like cheesiness, which I mean it wasn't even too cheesy in the game, but I just thought it was funny.
Hmm.
Let's see, what else do I got written here in my notes? I loved how the chapter select lower stone collection counted towards your profile completion. This is my post game note. This is actually my last note that I wrote down, but they made it really easy to jump in and jump out. So you could play through. You could select a chapter to replay. You could play through up to the point where the lower stone was that you missed. You could get it, and then you could just quit out to the main menu and then load another chapter, and it would save your
Oh,
progress for everything. So I only
that's
missed
nice.
5 lore stones in my first playthrough, so it was really easy to just like reload and pick them up in the post game.
Oh,
I
that's
like that.
that's really nice.
Yeah, it was very convenient. Let's see. What are a couple other notes? Ooh, okay. Here's a good note, and it's also something we haven't talked about in the game just yet. I wrote down the rune hints were a bit on the nose, but that's better than being lost. There's giant clouds of M and R, lol. Um,
Those
so
are the ones that you need to match on your screen.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for people who haven't played the game, I guess I mean we I keep saying that, but we're like 35 minutes now almost into a conversation where we're like spoiling the entire game. A pivotal game mechanic is that at any point you can hold right trigger and the camera will zoom in and Senua will focus on what's in front of her. And you'll come across gates that are locked by runes. And funnily enough, when I tested God of War, we did a rune sweep to ensure that everything was spelled properly. And
Hmm.
I kind of had to learn how to read the runes. And the language is called Futhark, and there's also like Young Futhark. And it does like correspond to like English characters too. And
Yeah.
it's I was looking at some of them. I'm like, oh yeah, that's obviously an R. But some of them were like, oh, that's actually like the A sound, stuff like that. And you'll come to a gate that's locked and it has like 1 or 2 or 3 runes on it, and then you'll need to go and walk around the nearby environment and see if you can find that rune but recreate it in nature. So a good example would be like there's an X on the gate, and then you turn around from the gate and walk around and be like, okay, where's the X? Where's the X? And then you'd find like a wooden beam that's diagonal, and then nearby is another wooden beam that's diagonal, and you would kind of need to go and position yourself just right and look at the wooden beams just right and focus on it so that way they would overlap and turn into an X. And then it would kind of hyper focus in towards the center of the screen and be like X, and then you could like exit focus mode, exit focus mode, and be like, okay, cool, there we go, I've got the rune. And I found that to be really fun. And sometimes it was a little annoying, but they thankfully had a thing in the game where if you were kind of in the general vicinity of where you needed to stand, there would be like clouds of that rune that would pop up. So for example, in this
Oh yeah.
X example, they'd be like, you'd be walking and you see a bunch of orange X's just floating around this area, and you're like, okay, cool, this is kind of the area that I need to investigate for that rune. Um, I do feel like it was kind of like on the nose, but at the same time, it was better than being lost. And yeah, I wanted to see how you felt about that.
Yeah. I mean, there were times where I felt like I was going crazy because I was like, I swear that this is it, but then I wasn't getting the rune clouds.
Mm.
And there was another time where I was actually getting the rune clouds, but I just couldn't get the angle quite right. But it was reassuring to know you're in the right spot. You just got to change your angle a little bit instead of like maybe spending 2 minutes there and then be like, oh, I guess this isn't it because there's no rune clouds. And then I
Yeah.
turn around and I walk away and then I do look it up and then it's like it's right here and I'm just like, damn it. So I think it outweighed to like have it tell you, hey, it's right here.
Yeah, my
Like
my initial thought when I did it for the first time or the second time, I was like, this is a little bit too obvious. But then playing through it like further and further into the game and doing like more of those puzzles, I was like, oh my god, thank God for these clouds. I think it would be so much better than being lost. It'd be interesting to try having somebody play through the game without those. But at the same time, that sounds like it would just be suffering. But yeah, I kind of like those rune puzzles. There were a lot of really good puzzles in the game that kind of naturally found themselves advancing, like in difficulty. There were some that actually kind of frustrated me, but not because of the puzzle mechanics, but mostly because of how slow Senua was.
Okay.
A good example would be the Valraven puzzle. In that there's like a forest, and you'll find that there's these gates, and it was like 2 poles and then like a Valraven skull like as like dangled like above between the 2 poles hanging there. And if you walked through the gate, you would kind of find yourself in like an altered reality almost, but basically you could look at something through the gate and see like a wall, and then like maybe I'm not explaining it the best, but let's say there's a wall in front of your way. But if you can walk around and kind of look at that wall through the gate, that wall could disappear. And then you walk through the gate, and now the wall is gone. And you had to like line that up multiple times. And there were some times where it was so obvious, but I missed it. There were some times where it was like, what the hell am I going to need to do to advance? And I was looking through the gate, and I wasn't seeing the difference between like looking through and not looking through until I eventually did get it. And I was like, ah. And they did some very smart puzzles with it. But I found myself getting frustrated at the fact that I was like walking around this like big open area. Like the next to last Valraven puzzle was kind of big, and found yourself like going through multiple gates at a time. And I was just like slowly like walking in between them, and it was taking me forever.
That was the one with like you had to like spawn the bridges across like the swamp ravine things, right?
Yeah, like
that one.
Well,
if that's the one.
That was the one where there was also like hanging like red like Valraven markers, and you had to like turn some of them off and then like line them up at the final gate at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. The Valraven was definitely I think had me thinking the most.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the mask ones too. Sorry. But yeah.
Valraven. The ones where you like kind of like go through time or whatever.
Yeah. I thought maybe I was like warping to another like dimension or some shit.
Yeah. It's like, are you going through time or to an alternate timeline or dimension or whatever? I think they did a really good job of keeping you in kind of like the same arena, but also giving you ways to manipulate it for their puzzles, whether it be the Valraven gates or the masks that kind of change the setting a little bit.
The mask. Somebody stop me.
Oh, I gotta be honest, I don't think I've seen that movie.
Whoa! It's not a great movie in retrospect. Oh my gosh. But it had some funny moments. Anyway. Yeah. That's me sidelining everything.
I'm actually just watching some of the Valraven stuff right now, and I forgot how there would be times where you'd see like an effigy or whatever, maybe not an effigy, like a scarecrow, like standing there, and then you'd walk past a gate, and then suddenly it would like be on fire, or it would no longer be on fire, and you're like, oh, that's Valraven, and he's watching me.
Yeah.
And it added to the paranoia.
They did a very good job of fucking with you. There was one part that blew me away that I remember where there's like a Valraven just kind of like floating there, like like kind of taunting you almost, and you have to walk around a circle to like get to where he's standing. So you're walking around the circle, and in one brief moment there's a tree that kind of blocks your vision of Valraven, and in that one specific like moment, once you're walking past this tree, that's when they decide to like flip a switch and turn Valraven off. So it's a very thin tree too. So you're walking around this circle and you're keeping your eyes on Valraven, you're tracking him, and then just he's gone. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, then suddenly it's just a scarecrow or whatever.
Yeah.
And they keep doing that throughout this segment.
It was good.
It's so cool. They did such a good job of like playing, like gaslighting.
Yep, dude. Fuck. I'm giving
bringing it back.
Run for my money with these gaslighting. Oh man, I think they did a very good job of that in the cutscenes as well. There's one specific note that I wrote down here. It was right before the trials, but I wrote, I love all the rapid scene changes. I'm at the big tree, and then there's flowers, and then there's darkness, and then I'm back in reality, and now the tree's on fire. Yeah. Like, there was a lot of scene changes that I thought was really nice and kind of still, like, played up on that, like, psychosis, maybe. I don't know. It was good.
Yeah. Oh no, totally. Like the whiplash of like a comforting and welcoming environment back to this bleak, desolate nightmarescape.
Mm-hmm. God dang. And then there's like after that you go to like the part where there's like just a bunch of like writhing corpses. I was like, ugh.
Yeah. Like I'm very like you could see why when I was recommending this game to you, I was like, I don't know what to say because there's so much that I want to talk about that I don't want to give away. I'm very impressed with how they managed all of these aspects from, um, from like making you feel uncomfortable to straight up frightening to making you feel smart for figuring out the puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
Like it did all of those things really well.
I'm a big fan of games making me feel smart. I need more of that. Yeah. My brain. Oh man.
Was there anything else that you wanted to cover on this one?
I think there's only one final note, and this is actually the very first note that I wrote down. I was wondering, how was your performance in the game? Because at the very start, my performance was shit, and I needed to go into my settings and turn ray tracing off. It turned itself on automatically on boot. So if you're playing this on PC, make sure that you go through the graphic settings first, because yeah, I had to configure my options a little bit, but I was getting like 5 FPS at the start, and I was like, what the hell is going on with this game?
So I'm on a 2080 Super, so okay. I didn't have a problem with the game's performance.
Okay, I need to figure out what my graphics card is. I need to maybe get a new one. Oh, there is another thing I wanted to bring up actually too. Sorry. Yeah. At the very start, in combat, the game doesn't tell you what the controls are, but you can pause and it shows you a list of combat controls versus non-combat controls on like the right side of the pause menu. And I found that to be a little bit jarring because I'm very used to other games when combat starts, like putting on like a prompt or another prompt on the screen, like a combat tutorial. But maybe it's like part of like not hand holding, but at the same time it was like, oh, I just pause and I get access to everything here and now I'm good. And I found that to be like something that was like a little bit jarring at the start, but I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting choice because I kind of like the I always think of that Sequelitis video. Is it Sequelitis?
I think so.
For the Mega Man one?
Yeah.
Yeah, where he talks about how the game lets you hit the buttons to figure out what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And of course in like Mega Man, you don't have the pressure of enemies around you, so you're not like you have the freedom to mess around and find out. And I think I just hit like one of the trigger buttons to swing the sword, and then at some point I looked it up to understand the combat a little more in depth.
Yeah, because the combat controls were like a little bit awkward. It was like X for light, Y for heavy, which I guess would make sense, but up until that point those buttons weren't used at all. But I guess maybe that also makes sense because it's like, oh, they're used for combat.
Yeah. Yeah, because you would think, oh, maybe it's a trigger or something. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's A, or maybe it's, like X and Y were kind of interesting choices. But it also, again, comes back to maybe sacrificing a little bit of game design for putting you in the character's shoes of like, holy shit, I'm in this hellscape and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and if they really wanted to do that though, then maybe they could even remove the controls from the pause menu, because like I did have to, like, it was something that I was stressed out with for like maybe a couple seconds, because I was like, how do I attack? I paused and then I saw the buttons all there and I was like, okay, cool, I'm not stressed anymore. So it was one of those things where it's like, maybe I could learn by pressing, but at the same time, like, I resolved my own issue in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's very much like an opt-in, opt-out situation, I think.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I would say very good game, and I'm very glad that you recommended it to me. And thank you very much for recommending it. I enjoyed it very much.
I'm glad that I'm glad that you liked it, because like I said, there's the horror aspect, and even like when we last talked about when I recommended this game, I was like, speaking of games that have like bad combat or whatever, because I called it out. The combat isn't anything special. It's literally just to almost add a little bit extra, add a little more chaos, add a little more.
Yeah, it's one of those games that like wouldn't be the same without combat, but at the
Yeah.
same time, combat was kind of like a means to an end. Like, she needed to like struggle a little bit and fight some enemies for the story, and also like to make it so you weren't just like moving from puzzle to puzzle every single time. Like, having a combat encounter in between puzzles makes it like shook it up a little bit.
Yeah, the combat was more for pacing than for the sake of like having good combat.
Yeah.
And I think that's what keeps it from just being like a psychological like walking simulator.
Yeah. Oh man.
So,
I would give the game, if I was to rate it, I don't know if I want to do like a numerical rating, but I enjoyed it a lot. I would give it a thumbs up at least.
yeah.
If I was to do a number though, like, I don't know, I'm leaning somewhere towards like 8.5 ish.
Yeah, I have it at a 9 for myself. I this is a game that like unless you cannot handle like horror like to any degree, like everyone should play this game. I wouldn't recommend this game to Ashlyn, but if I would recommend it to people who can stomach and like manage that kind of horror.
Yeah, it seems like a good game for people who are like gamers that have played similar like action games before. Like, if you've played God of War, then you would absolutely like be fine playing Senua's Sacrifice. And it might be interesting too, like for the Norse lore crossover.
Totally.
Right on. I think
Cool.
that's it for Senua. Do you want to discuss news, or do you want me to recommend a game to you now, or what should we do? What do you think?
Your call. I'll let you decide.
I'm down to do maybe like a little bit of news, and then we can move on into my game recommendation as an outro.
Sounds good.
Sweet. So, in the time since we last recorded, a lot of shit's gone down. It's been a crazy week. At the time we're recording this, it's September 25th. So yeah, 22, and friggin' hell, it's been an insane week, and there's been a lot of insane leaks. God dang.
Yeah. So GTA 6 is obviously being like the big one.
Yes. I was blown away when I heard about that. Of course, I looked it up and I saw a couple like videos and everything there. And it was very interesting hearing people talk about it, but like as if they had no idea about game development. And some people were saying like, dude, it looks unfinished, when it's like, yeah, no shit, the game's not out. So
It's literally unfinished.
supposedly it was like old video files from like 2017, but I don't know
Whoa.
I don't know if I buy that 100%, but I mean, it looks pretty good if it's from 2017. But it might
Here's
not
the
be.
thing.
That seems like a PR thing.
Yeah, I don't work in the game industry, and you do. So you might have a different opinion. I don't think the leak is a big deal. I think anyone who knows or cares about video games shouldn't see this leak as a problem. They should see it as a relief that GTA 6 is in development, that it's along the way, that we're not just going to be sitting on GTA 5 and GTA Online for the rest of our lives.
Okay.
But I do understand from a developer standpoint to be disappointed that your development, unfinished, in-house only stuff is making it out to the public. I get that's disappointing.
Yeah.
And I've actually made an effort to not look at too much of the leaks and stuff because kind of out of respect for the developers.
Yeah.
Which might be kind of stupid. But
Well, I think that's fine.
But like I've seen a little bit and I'm like, it looks like a game that's maybe in alpha, and that's fine. All I needed to know was this game was in development. I think the story leaks or the setting leaks are a little more unfortunate for the studio.
Yeah, it's something that I wish that maybe they would have shared at the time that they wanted to, when it was all ready.
Totally.
Yeah, I've seen some like disappointing opinions online, but I mean, for full disclosure, I don't go on like any social medias. Like, I don't go on like Twitter, I don't go on Instagram. I used to go on TikTok a good amount, but even then I've since stopped because I felt like my brain was rotting. I would take like 1 hour shits because I would just watch TikTok for an hour. And
The toilet was the TikTok seat.
it was the scene of the crime. But my takeaway is that I find it to be very I do think that it's not a big deal in the scope of like affecting sales of the game, because anybody with eyes and a brain would realize that that's not the finished product, and you'd have to be a complete idiot to think that like that's the game that you would buy. I do think that it is a big deal in reducing like mental health of developers and stressing them out. I feel like the fact that people would be so crazy as to because like, did you hear about how the stuff was obtained?
It was a hack through like a network vulnerability, right?
No, actually, it wasn't like a networking hack. It was a social engineering hack where this one dude
Oh,
would like impersonate various employees at Rockstar, I believe, and reach out to like IT people and be like, "Hey, my Slack password I needs to be reset. I got logged out. Can you like send me like a password reset?" Until they eventually got into their Slack, and then they were able to download attachments from Slack. And so
dang.
yeah, it wasn't like a network hacking thing. It was, and I feel like if it was network hacking, I would actually be less scared. The fact that
That's fair.
people are crazy enough to kind of like find out who works at the company and then impersonate employees and try to get their passwords reset until they eventually do get in is kind of like a very stressful and kind of like, I don't know, like a future that I don't necessarily want to be a part of, but unfortunately I think we all will have to be. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just kind of leans into like the trust nobody thing. Like if you're working on Grand Theft Auto and you get an email, it's like, can you not, you can't click any links. I don't know, like you can't, it's like you have to keep everything under extra lock and key, which kind of sucks. I kind of wish game development was a little bit more open. But at the same time, it's a billions of dollars of industry, and like theoretically, like one wrong move could cost the company a lot. I do feel like potentially this reduces hype towards Grand Theft Auto 6, and maybe that impacts sales in somewhat, but I don't know, like just from the stressed out scared angle of thinking like, oh yeah, what if somebody's going to impersonate me to download my files? It's like a little bit insane. I don't know. I don't like it too much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like at work, we do phishing email things,
Hmm.
and and like they'll flag you if you get caught by their phishing attempts. They're like internal. Like so, we've got like a
Oh yeah, we did that once also as like a test. It
yeah
was so funny.
yeah. I got caught on one because I was like not fully paying attention to my email, and I was like, oh, I just got hit by a phishing thing. But of course, the moment it asked me to log in, I'd be like, oh, this is fake. So it wouldn't get my credentials, but the fact that I even clicked the link flagged me. And then, but I mean, that's kind of the problem with people. People are the weakest point of security, and we're moving towards new pass key standards instead of password standards, where
Hmm.
if somebody says, "Oh, hey, I can't get into my name's Cameron, I can't get into my Slack," and they go, "Okay, why don't you come into the office and bring in a new device to authenticate to?" Because passkey or passkeys is what they're called,
Hmm.
are hardware based. So instead of you having to type in a password, it's just log into Slack. Here's my email address, and it prompts you on your linked device, like your phone, and that's it.
Oh, two-factor
So
authentication.
it actually skips the password part entirely. It's single factor.
Whoa, one
Yeah.
FA? Let's go.
Yeah. But it's not passwords. So now I can't say I can't pretend to be you and then get a link to me to then change your password, and then now I can pretend to be you inside of Slack. So
Okay.
it removes that whole factor of it. Like passwords aren't really that secure to start with.
Yeah.
So so I think that's pretty neat.
If
And
you
then the
move to
other
1FA
yeah.
though, like theoretically couldn't somebody like steal your device and then get access to everything? Like could
Okay,
that
but how do
potentially be an issue?
you if you have my phone, how do you unlock my phone?
Oh
It ends
yeah.
up being 2FA on some other level because the phone needs to, not only need to have the phone, but you need to either authenticate via biometrics or by PIN, which is still a passcode,
Jeez, that's gonna
something
be
you
so
know or something you
scary.
are.
That's gonna be like the
Yeah.
next thing too, where somebody's gonna like find a Rockstar employee and like stalk them and follow them to their house and like watch them through binoculars until they unlock their phone.
Right. Yeah.
Jesus.
So, I mean, yeah, security is super important, and it's going to only become more. concerning, but hopefully more secure as time goes on as we get these other things put in place.
Yeah, fingers
So
crossed, because I saw that and I
yeah.
was like, oh man. Imagine being the dude who was working in IT also and was
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, yeah, I'll reset your password.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Totally. And it
leaked stuff. Oh, fuck. And supposedly they also got access to the GTA 5 and GTA 6 source code.
that is a big hit.
That's massive. And I don't know. It might be a lie. I hope that it is. But, if they have access to like networking code and shit, like then, theoretically there's a hell of a lot of vulnerabilities that then need to be like rewritten and addressed, and that's going to like push the game back even.
Yeah,
I don't
I
like it.
wonder how that's all gonna like. I don't know what kinds of things are in their code. Obviously, the source code itself is proprietary, so that already sucks. But like,
Mhm.
yeah, then you basically have an inside view of what server structure and server security looks like,
Yeah. And
which
then
is
from
never great.
and then from there you can do some crazy shit. And I don't
Security through obfuscation is never really a good practice, but that doesn't mean that people don't do it. So
mm,
like it's secure because they don't know how we do it, and of course not they have the code, they do know how they do it. I don't know if Rockstar actually practices that very much, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was hints of it everywhere. Sometimes this can be a little wonky because the way I did it is unknown to the end user, so there's no way they can really hack it. But the moment someone has my code, now they know exactly how to hack it.
yeah, that makes sense. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't even consider it. It's like, oh, cool, like the code is safe because I'm the only one who has it, and
Exactly.
you don't really anticipate people getting your shit, like yeah,
Hmm.
it's wild, it's freaking wild.
Yeah.
Oh man, did you hear that there was also at the same time as the GTA 6 leak, there was also a Diablo 4 leak? And I don't really care that much about Diablo, but the funny thing about it was that it was from a friends and family internal playtest where developers could bring their friends and family in to playtest the game. And the footage
Oh,
was covered with like build IDs and watermarks and like player IDs and everything.
oh man.
So it's like whoever leaked it's about to get fucked.
Yeah. How bad would you feel if you were like, oh yeah,
Hey Robert,
I
come
let my
join a
roommate.
friends and family playtest. And then it's
Yeah,
like
and then it
user
leaked
at
all that.
Robert.
Like, how bad would you feel? And even if it's not your fault, it's like
Yeah,
that
that's a
would
good
suck.
question. Like, would you get punished for like your friend being a dickhead? I would hope not. I feel like at the end of the day, it's not your fault if you're not leaking anything. But they would also be like, dude, why your friend sucks, dude.
Yeah.
That would be funny though, as a way to get fired. Just, I mean, maybe it wouldn't be funny, but I don't know. I think it'd be funny.
Funny from an outside perspective.
Yeah. Funny when you're not like in the thick of it. Oh
Yeah.
man. Did you see any of the GTA 6 footage then? You said you were avoiding it.
I saw a little bit. I just saw them like running down the street with some like code streaming, like debug
Yeah,
log
some
streaming down
debug
the
stuff.
side. So I'm like, okay, cool. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, man. Do you think the game's gonna launch with that debug stuff? I hope it doesn't.
Dude, if it did, oh my god. I don't know that I could buy that game.
I don't know. I don't know if I could support this company.
Rockstar's just lazy if they're just gonna ship that
Bunch of
tomorrow.
fucking lazies. Oh man. Oh, did you see? Ooh, it was good. There was a meme that was going around. Because okay, so there was discourse about GTA 6 and a lot of people being
Hmm.
like, "Yeah, no shit, it looks unfinished because it is unfinished." And there was one turbo smooth brain take that game developers actually memed on. There was a dude who said, "If you don't know, graphics are actually the first thing that gets done in game development. This is a common practice." Talking out their ass like they know anything when they don't. And
Yeah.
a bunch of professional game developers chimed in and quoted, "Yeah, graphics are what gets finished first." There was an artist or maybe one of the lead devs of Control said, "Oh yeah, graphics get finished first," and then they showed footage of like an early test map where everything looks like shit. There was a Horizon Zero Dawn
Oh.
character artist who shared what the early like Thunderjaw model looked like, and it looked like a bunch of
Yeah.
Legos.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so fucking good. Yeah, I
I, s-
recommend that
I
you look it
saw
up.
one. I saw a post on Reddit that was three games. It was Horizon, God of War,
Oh yeah, was
and
there
maybe the third one?
Uncharted?
No, and Control. And Control.
Okay.
It was those three. And yeah, you're like, I was like, oh, that's a cool post. I'm looking at it right now. I'm like, oh, that's a cool post. You can kind of see like
Yeah, it's
they
so
knew what they
cool.
wanted it to look like, and of course it's unfinished because they're just working on it. But they want to make sure they can get like the gameplay and
Yeah.
everything to like
I
function correctly,
I
right?
love that shit. So I never saw that God of War footage and it blew my mind. It looks like originally the Baldur fight was going to be more open and there was going to be more of an emphasis on like throwing him into like obstacles and stuff. I'm glad that they changed it to what it is now, but it's so cool to see like test maps. Like every game has test maps, a shit ton of test maps, in fact. And yeah, that's so cool. I saw one take
Yeah,
where somebody was like, "Hey, maybe we should piss off game devs more often so they can show us like really cool like early like footage from games." And I mean, it was
yeah,
more of a joke, but it was like this is the best thing to come from it, like that we can see like more
totally.
like early stuff. I love
I mean, it
looking
just
at
adds
that.
so much appreciation for
Yeah.
everything that they do.
There was a really cool one from Uncharted 4 where in a you played Uncharted 4, right? Or
No, actually, I'm
oh,
I'm in the middle of three, but I'm not super into the Uncharted games.
I think you might like 4 more. That's
Yeah,
this isn't my game recommendation for the episode,
no, no, no,
but
that's fine.
I actually I got a confession to make. I never
Oh,
played Uncharted 1, 2 or 3 and I only played 4, which is maybe bullshit. I in terms of Yakuza, I'm the same. I've only played Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is Yakuza 7. So
yeah,
it'd be like your first Kingdom Hearts game being Kingdom Hearts 3. Um
okay.
and so
I mean, my first God of War game is God of War for PS4, so
Hey, same. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. We're bad.
oh
No,
no,
we're good. We're fine.
I'm not a real God of War fan.
Not a real god of war. But yeah, so Uncharted 4 is very good and it had a lot of really it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. And there's one segment in the game where you are doing like a car like getaway and they
Hmm.
showed footage of this like getaway scene, but it was before all the art was done. So what they did was first they had it all blocked out and everything was just gray rectangles. And they made sure that the gameplay was fun with everything in that layout as gray rectangles, and then they added the environment art after the fact. But in order to prototype and playtest, they made sure that everything felt good before arting it up rather than after.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see. Like there's in this game sequence, there's a car ahead of you that has like a mounted machine gun on it, and they're shooting at you. So you're swerving left and right in between buildings to avoid this car that's in front of you shooting at you. And like they show like the before and after where it's like you're swerving to the left, swerving to the right, and this machine gun's like shooting corners of the building and like they're exploding and blasting like bricks out. But they showed it all before and everything was just like gray rectangles. And I was like, this fucking rocks. It reminds
Wait,
me of
you're
like,
telling me
yeah,
you're telling me that they didn't start with the exploding things,
I
with
don't,
the exploding
yeah.
graphics?
But I thought the graphics were what's done first.
Yeah.
I saw it on Twitter. See that smooth brain takes like that are like why I don't even go on Twitter, man. I would just get I would get too mad. I don't I try not to even go on Reddit sometimes, or I don't go on Reddit much. Sometimes I do if I'm
Yeah.
like looking up like the latest news for like Smash Bros or something, but otherwise it's like
Interesting.
I'm steering
I
clear
get
of
it. There's a lot of smooth brain takes on Reddit too.
I have a really
I
bad
use
habit of
Reddit
scrolling
regularly.
down too until I could read like 10 things at the top that I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then I would get down to like the 11th comment and it's like a dog shit. And I'm like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
cool. Now I'm mad.
Totally. I do that a lot.
Oh man, it is so
I'm
good though. I
looking.
love the whole graphics are done first thing. I
That's
should show
pretty
you
high school take.
I had a test map for Pokemon Paranormal before everything was done. And I even streamed it a little bit, but I didn't make a video. But I should have. That'd been cool, like before and after. I probably could show a before and after. Yeah,
I really get the feeling that you actually sent me a screenshot of it or something.
I think I
Because
may
or
have.
you were streaming a little bit. You were like, "Hey, look at what I'm working on."
Yeah, and everything is just kind of like the default like gray grid textures.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm scrolling up through the stuff that we sent. Oh my god, I saw
Yeah. Same.
the ass quake thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see one screenshot, but it's just like the Trevenant in the forest.
Oh, okay. Maybe you just sent me that then. But I don't know. Maybe I popped by your stream or something. But I know that I've seen some of that like Devi stuff that you were working on too.
Yeah, I love doing little devy stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Um,
Yeah, were there any other news stories you want to talk about? I know GTA 6 is like the biggest one right now.
that's the big one.
Yeah, what else you
Just
got?
just a couple quick announcements that we don't really need to get too into. Shovel
Okay.
Knight Dig is out, which I
Oh.
downloaded onto my phone on Apple Arcade, and I did not like the controller setup for a touchscreen,
Oh no.
but it got me excited for the games again. I never beat Shovel Knight, and it's on my 3DS, so I'm actually gonna get my 3DS, break it out, and play
Oh
that.
man, I would almost recommend just playing it on PC with an Xbox controller.
I mean, then I need to go buy it again.
Oh, yeah.
I think I have the money to afford a $10 game.
I can't afford that shit. What do you think I am? Some sort of Shovel Knight guy? Come on. I have a
I might
coworker
actually
who worked on
do that.
Shovel Knight, and
Oh yeah.
he was a QA on it, and he said that one of his tasks was setting up some of like the store place artwork. So he was given like a lot of like the different like key art files, and they needed to like, oh, on Steam it needs to have this resolution, and then on PlayStation it needs to have this resolution, and then like on Steam for like the game preview, like on this tab it needs to have this resolution. So he went in and set up like a bunch of different resolution like art files for Shovel Knight in the store, and I was like, oh, that's cool.
That's pretty sick.
I know the guy that did that. Yeah, that he's a really cool dude.
Yeah. So Dig is out, and it's gonna be kind of Metroidvania, or no, sorry, I'm mixing up my things. It's gonna be roguelite.
Oh.
So I played a little bit of it. It looks promising. I'm like, I don't just because I uninstalled it after 5 minutes doesn't mean I didn't like it. It got me excited about it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's on sale on the PC also, $25, 10% off on Steam as of right now.
Okay. I'd be
So
interested
definitely
in
ways
that.
to get to it.
Yeah.
If I wanted to play Shovel Knight, which one am I supposed to play first? Because I see like five.
I would say just the OG. So Shovel Knight is kind of a weird game to discuss in that they added a bunch of DLC chapters after, and then I think they started selling them as separate things. But I think the base game campaign is referred to as Treasure Trove.
Okay.
There's also like a King Knight playthrough, Spectre Knight, Plague Knight. I played through Plague and Spectre, and those are both really fun. I didn't play King. They also added like a Smash Bros mode to Shovel Knight, which is crazy to me. That's really cool. I like that they're kind of like branching out into a bunch of different franchises. Did you see their newest game also? It's I forget the name of it. Shit, but the company
The
is
developers?
Yeah,
Yacht Club?
yeah, Yacht Club. Fuck, let's look this up right
Is
now.
Cyber Shadow?
No. Mina? Is that what it is? Mina the Hollower? Yeah.
I've heard of that.
That game looks like it's going to be really friggin' fun. Like, the art's really cool. Mina has a very good character design, and it's kind of like a throwback to old top-down Zeldas.
Ooh.
It looks almost like a Game Boy Advance game, but it looks kind of like some of the Zeldas, and it looks really fucking cool.
All right.
I recommend it. Plus,
Yeah.
the music in Shovel Knight's so good. Oh,
I know. I got it on recommendation from you, funny enough.
yeah, there we go. That's a good recommendation. Yeah, Strike the Earth is good. The Plague Knight one is good. I mean, there's so many good songs. All the songs are good, but I would
Yeah.
highly recommend, I think Spectre Knight's Levels, I think was my favorite. And then like the Air Knight, I forget his name, Propeller Knight. Oh, it's so good. Okay, yeah, I could gush about the Shovel Knight stuff for a while, even though I haven't played it in years. But I think that was one of the first Kickstarter games that I ever bought and played. Although I didn't support it on
Yeah.
Kickstarter. I should
You
have.
you definitely were talking about it. You're like, oh, this game just got like done off of Kickstarter. It's super good. And then I took my time to get to it and never actually beat it. But
It's good.
I did
It's
enjoy
hard,
it when I
though.
played it.
It's hard,
Yeah.
but it's good.
Another announcement. Who's the developer for Persona?
Oh, Atlas?
Atlas made an announcement that there will be no Persona announcement next month.
Oh, you're killing me. Persona
I-
5
I-
Royal is coming to PC soon. Persona 4 Golden is already on PC. I already bought it. I'm waiting for Persona 3 Fez, I guess, to come to the PC. Although you could always emulate it. But yeah, I'm the Persona fan of the podcast.
Yeah, so I figured I'd share that news with you because for whatever reason they felt like they should make an announcement that they weren't going to announce anything for it next month.
I guess just so people don't get their hopes up, because I think
Yeah.
right now we're in the awkward point where people are like, okay, Persona 5's been out for years. When's Persona 6? And so they're just like getting ahead of it and being like, not now. Sorry.
Yeah.
Persona
EA Motive is now working on an Iron Man game.
Oh.
I'm assuming
Interesting.
that Marvel is really greenlighting all these things off the heels of Guardians of the Galaxy being so successful.
Yeah, I could have sworn there was a scrapped Iron Man game
There
from.
was a VR one,
Okay,
and then EA
yeah.
made Anthem, which is like
Ooh.
Iron Man but not.
Yeah, and that game was a massive success.
Yeah. um,
We all played Anthem, right? We all loved it, right? Oh man, I feel
yeah,
so bad for like a lot of the BioWare peeps.
yeah. I think that's a tough one.
That's a tough loss. That's a tough pill to swallow there.
Yeah.
Oh man, BioWare
I'm,
became
I'm
DioWare.
flying through a couple other announcements. PSVR 2 was officially announced, so that's something I'm going to keep my eye on to see as the VR space grows.
Yeah, dude, I've still never played a VR game before, but I told you that story about how I purchased a PSVR. I think I even mentioned it in the last episode, right?
Yeah, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I purchased one,
I've bought
but it
one
was
but never
broken.
played one. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm waiting for that. The whole point was I was waiting for PSVR 2 all along. Yeah, I knew that they were gonna do it. So
That was some big brain right there, dude.
yep. Yeah, that's why I'm not even gonna play PSVR 2 because I'm waiting for PSVR 3.
Speaking of hardware announcements,
Oh.
or lack thereof, I forgot to mention this, but I'm firmly bought into the I guess you could call it a conspiracy or copium that there will be a new Switch installment, a hardware installment or upgrade of some sort
I
when
would be
Breath of the
su-
Wild 2 comes
I would
out.
be surprised if they didn't do a new Switch. I don't know about Breath of the Wild 2 per se, but I would totally believe it.
I mean, at that point, we're talking 7 years since the first
Yeah.
one came out.
That's
So
crazy.
at least if it was like a Switch Pro
Yeah, would they
that
call it
was like,
Pro?
oh,
Would they
yeah,
call it Plus? Something
Super
along those
Nintendo
lines.
Switch.
Yeah. I that
So
was one thing I forgot to mention in our last podcast when we were talking about Zelda and Breath of the Wild 2. I think a major concern would be how's the game gonna like how's the old ass Switch gonna run this shit? You know, like is it gonna run smoothly? It looked like Link was jumping from the sky islands down to the ground. Like it's gonna load like well and look fine. Like I mean, if anybody's gonna do it, it'd be the Breath of the Wild peeps because they kind of like set the bar for graphics on the Switch that haven't yet been beaten. Although the new Kirby game does look really goddamn good.
yeah, but see, I don't have that faith in the hardware. I have a launch Switch, so it's not gonna run Legend of Zelda. I can guarantee you. If they could just beef up the processor or something, like
Yeah. Well,
that would I expect that at minimum.
it might still be able to run it, assuming that they're using the same, engine, which I believe that they would be. It wouldn't make sense for them to start from scratch. So, I mean, they've learned a lot from developing Breath of the Wild 1 for the Switch, and I guess now Tears of the Kingdom, it would make sense for them to like take that and improve on it and iterate on it further. But I'm still like skeptical of it like running smoothly, but I guess that's just cuz it's a Switch. The Kirby and the Forgotten Land does run just fine on it in docked mode. I haven't played it in handheld though, but
Yeah,
it seemed
yeah.
fine. I don't know. I just
I
gotta
haven't
download
heard
more
anything
RAM.
bad about it from Ashlyn. Yeah.
Just gotta do an update where you can just patch in some RAM and then we'll be good to go.
Patching some RAM.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would be surprised if they eventually didn't at least do like a Switch Pro, or maybe they'll even just go Switch 2. Maybe they could just do like the PS like 5, PS4, Switch 2. Maybe they could just call it the Switch 5. Like meet with the PS5 and then be good there. Just
Yeah,
don't do
just
what the
get on.
Xbox does. Don't do like Switch One X. Like fuck that. I'll pass.
Yeah, Switch One X Pro Series
Yeah.
One.
Final Mix 0.5. Yeah, just do it like Kingdom Hearts. Switch 1.5
Yeah.
Final Mix.
Um, Gearbox has also announced that because of Tiny Tina's overperforming their expectations, they will continue to grow that IP further.
Oh, that's good
Uh,
news. That's good
yeah,
news. We could talk about it a little because we played some recently.
yeah, totally.
That's a fun game. I guess maybe we should play more before passing judgment. But
Yes,
I will say
it's a good start.
it's a good start, and I like the changes. I enjoy the changes, especially because you and I both were friggin' obsessed with like Borderlands 2, and we played Borderlands 3 a good amount, not as much as 2.
Yeah,
But yeah, seeing like spells and abilities and kind of leaning more into like the fantasy, I think that's a good angle that they should go with, and I'm glad to hear that.
I would still like to see a Borderlands 4, but it's cool to see that they're going to take this like thread of creativity and really expand it out more.
Yeah, I like that because it felt almost like DLC at first, but if they could like expand upon it and yeah, mold it into like its whole like own universe that's like fantasy,
I
that's
mean,
really
it
cool.
literally started as DLC though.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because there was the bunkers and badasses like Borderlands 3, or no, was that Borderlands
Borderlands 2
2?
DLC.
Holy
Yeah,
crap, that was Borderlands 2. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, what a blast from the past.
right.
That was good.
So that's cool. And
Hell
then the
yeah.
last thing that I'm pretty upset about is Nvidia's pricing on their next gen graphics cards is pretty insane.
Oh no, what are we talking?
A 4090, this
Yeah.
is like MSRP is $1,600.
Whoa! 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 That's
Yeah, that's
insanity.
like scalper's price.
What the fuck?
And it's supposed to outperform the 3090 Ti or whatever pretty handedly, but still, like, come on.
Oh man.
So,
Oh gosh.
um,
Hopefully this is something that gets like brought down over time, like all technology does. Like I'm excited for the advancement of technology, but at the same time, it's like fuck, that's pricey. I guess maybe that's how it's always been for like old stuff. Like back in the day, buying a floppy disk cost like hundreds of dollars.
yeah, I don't know. I see this as just like being, like
I wonder if it's like a supply and demand thing. Like,
predatory. I
I,
see it as being predatory. They're
yeah,
capitalizing late on the boom of graphics cards being used to farm.
yeah. The
And
only
I feel like they figure people are willing to buy the scalped cards, so we could probably.
sell them for
No, I'm not
higher.
saying that it's. Yeah, I'm not saying that this graphics card isn't going to be better than like AMD's $900 graphics card that
Hmm.
will eventually come out, but I don't think people will want to pay that much for that level of performance won't really be needed.
Oh, I would definitely wait. Like I haven't bought a new graphics card in a long ass time because I think paying like over 500 is much.
Yeah,
And
I got mine for 8 and that was on sale, and I was like, damn, this is.
holy
I like
moly.
I basically put together a PowerPoint and said, Ashlyn and I we just got married like 2 months ago, but can I get this?
Yeah, you did a PowerPoint party for her, like why I need a new
Yeah,
graphics card, and everything's like in Comic
yeah.
Sans with like clip art frogs.
She's like, you could have just asked. You could have just bought it, and I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, here's a
um,
PowerPoint as to why I'm sorry.
yeah. The reason there's so much bad faith in Nvidia though is I was reading through some more news on this, and it looks like they're releasing two versions of the 480, one that has 16 gigs and one that has 12. And there's
Oh,
some other metric in there that somebody was saying really the 12 gig should be a 470, a 4070.
oh shit.
But
So,
they're selling it as a 4080 so they can mark it up. Um,
oh,
and I'm not as well versed in graphics cards as I'd like to be, so take this with a grain of salt. But the speculation that I've read is they want to be able to sell computers like pre-builds that have a 4080. And they're like, well, is it a 4080 16 or 12 gig? And they just go, oh, it's a 4080.
oh no.
So it's
Oh, that's
creating more
bad.
confusion. And so all of these things, intentional or not, has bought Nvidia a lot of bad faith in the general like gaming community.
Yeah, I don't know if I like the sound of that. Just being like, well, it's a 4080. Oh
Yeah.
no.
I mean,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll have to see how they actually roll it out, but that's the concern.
Okay. Yeah. Fingers crossed that that's not the case. I mean, yeah, it is cool to see like technology advancing and getting better, but like the price we pay for shit is that's a lot, man. 1,600. Holy crap. Like, can't you buy like used cars for that price? Or maybe not now, but I mean,
I
wasn't
mean, like a
there?
really crappy one, like
Yeah.
a car our age, maybe.
Let's go.
But, but I mean, yeah, that's rent for a lot of people.
Yeah. That's like that's a lot. Fucking hell. Yeah, you could buy like three PS5s for that price. Why not
Yeah.
just get a PS5?
Why even PC game at that point? To be honest, for
Yeah,
that rate.
for the price of $1,500, you could get a PS5 as well as buy every single game that you would ever want to play on that PS5 and still have leftover money probably.
Yeah,
Like
actually.
how many games are you going to realistically buy on your PS5? You would need to buy like 20 games
I
or
don't know if I get it right
more.
now.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Oh boy. Yeah, I
You would
feel
have to buy 15.7 games at $70 a piece. So that's if you're for a month and a quarter, you're buying a brand new game at full price every single time, no discounts or anything.
Jeez
That's
Louise.
That's a lot of money, and that's to break even, basically.
That's some gamer shit
That's
right
before you've
there.
bought a single game on Steam. Yeah,
Yeah. I guess that's the one thing that Steam has going for it, where it's like this is my library that's permanently growing over time. Where like
yeah.
PC games are PC games, so I could run on my PC forever. Like I have some games that it's like, oh, I last played this in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I love that though. Being able at any time. I'm like kind of like a digital hoarder sometime. Like I'll bring up my Steam right now, but I have like way too many games installed that I'm never gonna, well, maybe not never, but like I want to play but haven't played. Like
I'm trying to
I've
trying to
got
see what
some
my
good
oldest game played is.
Oh man. I think I started my
Dead Rising
Steam.
2 in 2013 was the last time
Oh,
I
that's
played that.
good. Yeah, let's see when I last played Dead Rising 2. That's a good game. Oh, where's my Dead Rising? Okay, there it is. Dead Rising 2. Yeah, I last played that in 2015. Dead Rising 1, 2016. Dead Rising 2 off the record, 2016. Dead Rising 4. I got that for like a couple dollars. Never played it. But supposedly
There was
that
a
game...
4?
Yeah, supposedly 4 sucks.
Wait, there was a 3?
Yeah, there was a 3. There was 3 and 4 for Dead Rising, yeah. Dead Rising 3, I think, wasn't as good as 1 or 2. And then 4 was supposedly, like, garbage. There was a whole controversy around 4 where, like, the lead creative dude was like, we're going back to our roots. But by going back to their roots, they ended up, like, removing everything that was actually iconic to the series. They were like, we're going back to our roots. Frank's back. No time management. It's like, wait, what? Wait a fucking second. Did they not play the first game?
Yeah, the time management. Like, what was so cool about that game is like, I mean, 3 day. It's 3 days, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Zelda, 3
And
or
then
4
you get
days,
like
whatever.
you get a bonus 4th day if you complete like all the stories, and they call it like overtime mode.
Yeah, it's like you can really replay that game a lot and
Yeah,
get a bunch of experience out of it, as opposed to like we're talking like Birth by Sleep a while ago, where it's like, oh yeah, you can replay it, but you're kind of playing the same thing and getting mostly the same stuff out of it.
dude,
With a
I
couple
just had a
different.
Jimmy Neutron brain blast. Holy
Oh
shit!
boy.
Are you ready to hear this?
Great.
Here's my scalding hot take of the episode. I have to have at least one. Dead Rising is a roguelike. Maybe that's not a hot take, but it's a roguelike.
Actually, yeah.
Dude.
Because how long is a playthrough of that? Like
It could be really
4
long.
hours?
It's a very long roguelike though. I do feel like from start to finish, if you do all the cases, it would still take like a lot of time. But it's still like the gameplay loop is a rogue loop in that like you play until you like fail or like f up the story, and then you could choose to just play out the rest of those 3 like days with the case abandoned and like farm XP. But then that XP would persist into your next playthrough. So in a sense, it's a roguelike in that, you know, like you can unlock new shit and then be stronger in your next playthrough. So that way you could then succeed and then eventually beat the game. It'd be like in
Damn.
Binding of Isaac, where at the start you suck ass, but then you can unlock more and more power ups until eventually you have so much power that then you can overcome the bosses.
yeah, yeah.
Oh
I
man.
see it. I like it.
Dang, they should just lean into that. If they ever did a Dead Rising 5, they could like shorten the gameplay loop and make it like more of a roguelike, but still have it be like the emphasis on like time and cases and leveling up and stuff, but like unlocking more shit for like the next. That'd be cool. I used to be really into Dead
Yeah.
Rising.
Oh yeah. That was like you'd be like, I'm coming over. I've got my Xbox, and we're either playing Dead Rising, Left 4 Dead, or Borderlands.
Everything has dead in the name except for Borderlands. Oh yeah, I got my other hot
Definitely.
take. I got a second
yeah.
hot take. Borderlands 4 should be called Forderlands.
They would do it just because that's like their brand.
Yeah, they would just put the 4 in front. So it would just be like the number 4 and then Durlands. Borderlands.
That'd be terrible. I'd probably buy it.
Oh my gosh. I would probably still buy it. I don't know about full price though. Maybe after 3 I'm like, I'll give it some time. Although Tina,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I didn't buy Tina at full price either, but
Tina needs to earn my my goodwill back for me to buy Borderlands 4 at full price.
I could see that. Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I bought Back for Blood at full price, and I'm not sure that I'd say I regret it, but I have definitely not played it enough to justify it.
I think they've updated it a lot recently to make it better. Back for Blood.
Yeah, I just like haven't found or been felt compelled to find the time to really play it.
I feel
But,
that. Yeah, there's so
you
many
know.
games nowadays. It's like, why would you spend your free time taking a chance on something that you tried once before and didn't have a positive experience with.
Totally.
Speaking of taking a chance on games, do you want
Yeah.
to, we could wrap this up with my recommendation?
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. The game that I will recommend to you for our next episode is Neon White.
Oh, okay.
That game has a fucking banging soundtrack. It is a drum and bass soundtrack that I think you would fucking love.
You know that.
The strength of the game is in its gameplay. I will say it's kind of arcadey in that like it's split up into like bursty like short levels, and there's a lot of emphasis on like replaying these levels to try to go faster and faster and get better and better. So it's very much gameplay driven, and this is going to show a lot of like where our preferences differ. I would
hope
say
the story's as good as Senua Sacrifices.
I would say the story's not as good as Senua Sacrifices. In fact, there were some times where I wish the characters would just shut the fuck up. But yeah, the gameplay is fantastic, and I would be very interested to see how you feel about it. Without spoiling too much, I will say that one of the central mechanics of the game is picking up weapons and using them and then discarding them to get abilities. If you haven't seen anything about the game, an example that I would provide is that you can pick up a pistol, and the weapons are represented by cards throughout the map, so you can see them from a distance. Each weapon is colored too, so the pistol would be like a yellow card. You can run to it, pick it up, and then you can shoot it, and you have limited amount of ammo, so you could shoot it at enemies to kill the enemies, or at any time you could discard that card to gain a second jump. So you can jump, shoot some enemies, and then discard your pistol, and then jump up again to like reach a ledge that you couldn't without it. And
So
it's very
when
fun
you
and
have
very
the-
fast.
So when you have the card out, you can actually use it to use that gun, but then
Yeah.
you just discard it whenever you want.
Yeah. A very good example. I don't want to go and spoil too much shit because I want you to discover this stuff in gameplay. But they'll introduce more and more weapons that each have different like shooting properties as well as different discard properties.
Okay.
And they do a very good job of weaving them together to the point where, like, towards the end of the game, you'll see the color yellow and associate it with double jump. You'll see this color and associate it with this. I'll give one more example, but then I won't spoil any of the rest of the weapons. But there is kind of like a bolt action, like, sniper that you can get. So you can shoot something from far away, and it does more damage than a pistol shot. And at any time, you can discard it. And when you discard it, you do a straight dash forward really fast. And any enemies you hit with your dash, you'll also kill. And enemies can drop cards too. So what you can do is you can dash into an enemy and kill them and pick up their card through the dash. And then from there, you'll have another gun, which sometimes you can do a dash to a dash to a dash because you'll be killing enemies that drop the dash. It's very fun, very arcadey, and very hectic as well. But I'd be very interested to see how you feel about the game. I don't want to color your judgment too much ahead of time, but I will say that the strengths are gameplay and music, and I like the general flow as well. And the weakness would probably be narrative.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've seen very little of it. The card system is I kind of knew about, but from what I've seen, it kind of seems like my pace of game after having played Doom Eternal.
Oh yeah,
Which is very fast-paced gunplay. Obviously different, but
this game is very fast-paced gunplay as well. I still need to play Doom Eternal, but there's a heavy emphasis. It's almost like each level is a puzzle, and you want to solve it as fast as possible through execution, and that execution leads to platforming and gunplay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very good, and that's my recommendation. So yeah,
pulling it up on Steam as we speak.
Yeah. What are the? Let's see, is it on sale right now? What do we got?
Yeah, it's $5 off, and
Ooh.
I'm actually gonna run down to GameStop and get $5 off of a gift card.
Oh, let's go.
So.
Hell
Yeah, I got it all sorted out.
I'm looking at the reviews. It says overwhelmingly positive. I see the original soundtrack. I would say like if you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in playing Neon White, I would recommend it as well. But definitely look up just like Neon White OST or Neon White soundtrack. The soundtrack kind of gives away some of the details of the game, so there might be a little bit of spoilers here and there. But holy shit, it's really good, and it's Fuck, I need to remember who it was done by. It's done by a specific, like, EDM artist. Why am I blanking on it right now? Neon White... Machine Girl. If you're familiar with Machine Girl, the soundtrack is by Machine Girl.
I'm not, but
I'm not as familiar either, but it's so good.
that's not a name that I've heard of, actually. I thought I would have, but no.
It's all good.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited, and I love games with good music.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Good music
Ori,
and good
Supergiant
gameplay.
in general.
Yeah, this was a game that I've been looking up the soundtrack like after the fact a couple times to like pump me up.
Hell yeah.
Right on. Well, I think that's my recommendation all done, skis. We shall hear
Right
about
on.
how you schmoove in the next episode. Also, wow, before we wrap it up 100%, I will say on each level it shows you like your time compared to your friends' times. You should try to beat my time on one of the levels.
No.
Speedrun race.
I don't
baby.
have months to perfect my method to beat you.
Oh man. Let's see. I want to see what my playtime is on Neon White actually also before we wrap it up. Boo-da-boo-boo, where are you in playlist? There you are. I've played it for 21 hours.
Okay.
So there you go, just as a heads up. I feel like I've spent a lot of that time like after the fact like going for achievements. There's a lot of achievements. I haven't gotten all of them yet because one of them is beat every level in a row without dying once. And that's really hard. There's a lot of levels.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah. I was like, maybe some other time.
All right. I'm excited for this one.
Hell yeah, man. Well, this has been Frame Rate Podcast. Right on. We could do a little
for
outro
listening.
here. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some cool stuff. We talked about Senua Sacrifice at Robert's recommendation, and it was a friggin' banger, dude. That game is a banger. And yeah, that's it for us. So remember to like and subscribe, or else we will cry. And
Yeah.
until next time, I hope that y'all have a good one.